It's a very sleepy edition of 40K Fanatics podcast. Everybody, I am Shane. That is Austin here with you once again. Austin, how is that Summer of Chaos working for you?
Man, I think you guys are eating good.
The Chaos folks?
Yeah, have you not seen all the new Chaos Dwarves, Skaven, uh, a whole new Emperor's Children? You guys are eating good at Chaos. You guys are absolutely stuffed.
Well, yeah, but the Thousand Sons got, let me think, one model, and the Death Guard got one model, and the World Leaders got one model. So that's not very many. Space Marines just got four new characters and now a whole new box of Assault Terminators. Now look,
Well,
look,
I
look.
think
I am vehemently for fairness, and if anything in the world is not fair to me or others, I get really upset on their behalf. Spoiler alert, that is not what I do personally. I am not one of these people. However, the internet is a little bit up in arms that Space Marines have just all of a sudden gotten um, what we would call a range refresh if it were any other faction, because it would be a not insignificant number of units that have now been refreshed. Looking at you, Grey Knights, I guess you're going to be firstborn forever. You got anything on that?
I mean, maybe you could say it's the Summer of Chaos parentheses, but not necessarily for standing Chaos Legions in 40K.
Yeah, I mean, the Emperor's Children wasn't nothing, right? Um, Now look, the Age of Sigmar stuff, get out of here. To put to put the Hellsmiths of Hashut, is that what they were?
Yeah.
Yeah, those don't count. Like, y'all knew what we meant. We knew what you meant. Putting some Age of Sigmar armies out there is not the same as we're gonna fix Thousand Suns and give you a bunch of stuff. Emperor's Children was good. All right, I'm happy with that. But yeah, people seem mad about the new Space Marines, and it's a bit of a shame because look, Shane's personal opinion is I just like new models to get made. New models for everybody, more new models, new stuff to buy, fresh stuff. Um, it's all good to me. So I like, and also the form factor of this new Assault Terminators box. What does it have? It's got some regular Terminators, the new Assault Terminators, and some sort of character that goes with them, right?
Yeah, I believe it's the Terminator Captain, Terminator Ancient, and then Oops All Terminators.
Yeah. Now, do the Assault Terminators are they a different kit than regular Terminators that just got refreshed with the Leviathan?
Yes, the one that got released with the Leviathan were the default Terminators with Storm Bolters and Power Fists. Uh, and whatever the Chainsaw Fist is, I think it's just a Chain Fist, but that was the kit that was put out in Leviathan. We haven't seen a refresh yet until now of the Assault Terminators. These are the Terminators armed with Thunderhammers and shields and Lightning Claws. Those were still the firstborn squatty Terminators, and those are going to be on their way out as these new Terminators are being phased in with this new kit.
I really like these new guys. I like that. I like the chin strap sort of helmet-less options they have. I think that looks cool. The idea that, like, first of all, the idea that you could get hit in the jaw behind all that collar and chest piece, right, is unlikely. But just in case, they got like some jaw armor on these boys. Um, Crown of the head, and not too concerned. Apparently, Space Marine noggin is pretty stout stuff, right?
I think it's kind of invoking sort of like the unmasking of Darth Vader, where that's like part of the helmet that latches onto the top part.
Yeah, I like them. I think they're cool. I'm not mad that Space Marines are getting new stuff. Mainly because it's like I always say, the Space Marines are propping up so many other armies and whole other game systems that we don't even think about, or at least that's my belief of the sort of business of 40K. But our main topic today, we're going to talk a little bit about the business of 40K and that 3 year game cycle that everybody loves so much, um, which is a main topic brought to us by our Discord commenters. You can join the Discord. If you go down below to the link, it costs absolutely nothing to join. But like we always do, we've got a couple of show segments to knock out, and first it will be the Vox channel. We're going to open up the Vox channel where we read your comments from last week or the week before's pod. Last week, we tried to build a better Battle Shock, and it was fun. We came up with some ideas. I've not had a chance to try any of them. It is. I do feel like with 40K more than most games, it is a big ask to get to get an opponent to play a casual game, and then hey, also we're gonna throw some whole rules out the window and try this. You know.
Hmm.
Uh, but if you've gotten an opportunity to, let me know. We've got new commenters. I've never seen these guys before, and I'm glad that they're here. Hopefully, they're listening this week so that they can see themselves be recognized. First one comes from Sneedfest3399. This comes from YouTube. He's got an idea for a battle shock. He says, my idea is that every unit card lists a unique reaction to being battle shocked, picking from a number of preset conditions. Example, a guardsman squad might have routed, which causes them to lose D3 models per failed battle shock. A marine might have tactical withdraw, which is forced movement from the source of battle shock in next movement phase. Custodes might be pinned, where they never rout or withdraw but suffer movement and charge penalties, or a vehicle becomes suppressed with negatives to hit. Uh, then weapons or unit abilities can augment this. Example, an Infernus squad causes the routed condition in addition to a unit's normal battle shock penalties. And there's a discussion beginning down below that, which I always love when it happens in the comments. And so maybe we'll read a bit of that and how that develops next week. I also want to read from well, let's talk about that for a second. Sneedfest has come up with a great idea. Um, it's a bit, it's a bit a lot, but I like that it's fresh.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of. It seems like it's a bunch of rules up front that you'd have to try to deal with on all the unit cards. But if you seems like what he's getting at is almost like an additional sort of universal rule, like we have with weapons at this point, devastating wounds, lethal hits, into which your morale consequence would be sort of a rule in itself, pinned, routed, whatever the last one was. But it seems like a step towards a new kind of morale system that I think would work better. It'd be a lot more dynamic with the different units having their own little consequence.
Yeah, I really like the idea because so I'm imagining the way he's saying it too is it'd be on the data card. So where you have something like just a quick list, they would be universal. Maybe there'd be 6 or 8 of them, right? And where you have things like deadly demise or you know deep strike, infiltrator, those sort of single word abilities, you would have like battle shock, and it would say routed. And so when that unit gets battle shocked, they do this.
Hmm.
And then, like he says too, you could have the ability of a unit, such as a flamethrower unit, could make somebody add another thing or go instead of. So normally your Space Marines never run or whatever unless they've just been blasted off the point by a flamethrower, in which case, in the event that the flamethrower causes them battle shock, now they do have to run, which I think is thematically appropriate.
Hmm.
And meanwhile, the Infernus Marines, because they're flamethrower guys, when they're battle shocked, their battle shock ability might be the same as the Guardsmen, where they start losing guys because they're having their flamethrowers explode.
Yeah.
That I mean, it's just I love the freshness of it. I really thought that was a great idea. Sneedfest, get on the pod. We'd like to have you. I wonder what other good ideas he's got. We've got another one. Jesse the Mage, 8988 says, "Good vid. Myself in an myself in an alternate rule set for 40k, I play morale as treated as a debuff, -1 to hit rolls and armor saves. In addition, it cannot control or score objectives. There is also an option rule that units could retreat." So that's kind of his idea, which is good. Um, I kind of feel like that the idea of depowering units is a little bit dangerous because, and next week I'll tell you all now. We're going to talk about how AP is killing 40k. So get ready for that one. I think that uh, anytime you're anytime you're hurting the save for somebody, you're really piling on a little bit because we're already saving on sixes unless we've got invulns. It feels like, um,
Hmm.
but again, it's good that we've got the discussion started. And maybe GW, whenever we go to 11, will come up with a little bit more interesting Battle Shock. But
Yeah.
that's the Vox channel. You can comment on Spotify. You can comment on YouTube. You can comment anywhere. You can comment, and we will see them. Get in our Discord and let us know what you think about anything. Uh, you can post your models there. You can ask us questions. You can give show topic suggestions. Speaking of that bits box, we're going to open that up.
Sorry.
The bits box is a part of the show where we talk about what we've done in the miniature gaming hobby this week. We've got a bits box channel where you can see a lot of this stuff over on the Discord. Again, it's free to join, but you can share your own as well, and maybe we'll talk about them. There is an interesting challenge going on right now on our Discord where frequent contributor to the podcast, I believe it's Dave and Company, has said everybody should post their big finished models. So, got to be painted, got to be done uh, for everybody to see. So if you've got something big, I posted my Corn Lord of Skulls. It doesn't get much bigger than that for Chaos Space Marines. And he posted his brand new Keeper of Secrets. Um, Austin, I haven't seen your new model yet. Your new big
What
model.
new model?
Well, I
I
I haven't seen
look.
one.
I haven't bought a new model.
Well, you've got something big and finished somewhere, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I can pull something out, but it's kind of like well, here's something I painted years ago. Have
Yeah, no,
fun.
that's fine. That's fine. I think that's part of the challenge. I just want to see what all our fans have going on. But what have we been doing this week in the miniature gaming hobby? I have been working on my Helldrake, and it is the gift that keeps on giving. Austin, it took 4 days to glue the parts together on this thing.
It's wild.
Yeah, so I've got a. Do you know what a helping hands is?
I do. I have one.
Yeah, so helping hands is just an ancient hobby store staple, and it's basically a little skeleton man on a paperweight with gator clips and a magnifying glass, and it will hold things for you. And I've had to take like an entire Helldrake wing and get the helping hands all situated just so, cover the socket in plastic glue, and then stick it in there, and then pretty well wait overnight, or at least for a couple of hours, because this thing has got some long old parts that are just hanging out in the air. But now it's together and it's very bouncy, and I'm a little bit afraid that something's going to come off when I go to paint it.
Isn't that the fun part of
I
having a
feel like,
flyer like that?
yeah, yeah, probably. Um, I also went ahead and mounted it to its stand slash base with super glue because I couldn't come up with any way to do that you know, temporarily. So the problem was once I've got him up there, like I needed the body up there to then figure out where the wings and everything and the head and the neck and all these long parts were going to go. And if it wasn't rigidly attached to its stand, then how the heck was I going to get it to stay there while I tried to glue these heavy parts on? So now the whole thing's together, and that's cool because it's all posed the way I want it. But now the whole thing's together, and I'm going to have to paint this thing. So we'll just see.
Mhm.
It does fit on my big painting handle, which is good.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to throw some primer on it, maybe tonight, and then start all my various airbrushing and carrying on, and then it will be paint the trim and paint the
Yeah.
trim and paint the trim. And I'll probably go with my at least on the top of it. I'm going to go with my two-step, basically double painting process that I do on my Chaos Space Marines for all the trim because I have chosen to do this with my one limited life.
Absolutely.
How about you? What have you done in the miniature gaming hobby this week?
Well, as you, oh, what were you saying?
I was asking you what you've done this week.
Oh, well, I started talking. I heard the last bit of that, and I didn't know what you said. Well, as you know, this Saturday I am heading up. We're heading down to Jacksonville, Arkansas, for the Rock Lava Old World Tournament. Big crowd out there. I think it's going to be about 20 something people. Last I checked, there were like 4 spots left in it. But it's going to be a fun time. I am working on getting the Spider Riders ready for that. Going to be painting the spiders black. Just I like the black spiders, and also because there's a lot of fiddly underside parts on that, and I'd like to get a consistent color going on with it all. So doing like all black, and then like doing some dry brushing of some lighter gray on them for the texture and everything, highlights. I feel like will work well for trying to get the spiders done, and then the goblins on top. Just gonna do those, the war boss green and everything. Feathers are gonna be interesting. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be doing sort of more colorful feathers or more kind of a uniform, kind of like white with a bit of red uh, highlights on them or details. Excited to head up there. It's gonna be a fun time. Still working. I think all I have left after that is that unit of Snotlings, and I should be good to go for everything being painted up. And then I think that's it. I think that's all I'm working on right now. I've been real busy with other stuff.
Very good. I've also been working on I forget what they're actually calling him, but I got the Marvel Crisis Protocol box O, uh, basically Universal Monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, and I've been painting the Mummy. Um, you'll be interested to know I'm actually using an all-over wash on the Mummy, which I
No.
normally don't do anymore, but it just kind of it just kind of lends itself to such a thing, put an off-white, wash it, dry brush it, highlight it up, and then you're kind of done. I am, however, going to take some brown and some green inks and do a tinting pass all over him so that it doesn't look quite so flat. I'm going to kind of go uh, brown in one direction, green in another. Very, very working very, very thin with the airbrush is the plan, and I think that'll class him up quite a bit. But that's the bits box. Close it. Boom. Um. All right. Main topic time. This one comes from our Discord where we have an episode suggestion box that you can submit to. Um. And this one is: should the 3-year game release cycle at GW change? So, for those of you that are very, very new, historically, GW puts out an edition of their games. Every game, just about every game. Certainly 40K, Age of Sigmar, those two for sure. And then they let 3 years go, and then a new version comes out. And we start again with a new core rules. People get their codexes at some point throughout this 3 year cycle, and then right as the last people are getting their codex, we do it again. Now, that that bleep is whack, I
Yep.
say. Um, there's I don't want to say there's no reason for that, but the reasons aren't the reasons aren't for the betterment of the game usually, are they?
No.
Do you have a take on this that you'd like to give off the top, and then I'll come with mine? I think we might be a little bit too aligned here.
I think the thing with it is that you've got your two mainline games, and those are definitely moneymakers for Games Workshop, and they're also the the introductory games in the GW ecosystem. This is kind of going back to our specialist uh, games episode we released a couple of weeks ago. Uh, and the thing is, you've got a lot of your younger players, not necessarily younger age, but younger in kind of hobby development, and they're playing these games, and it's just an onslaught of new things coming out for people to buy, and they have to do this sort of constantly churning product to keep interest going with it, and always have new things coming out, new additions. But it also kind of, for people that have been in there for a while, it kind of creates a fatigue, especially if they're playing armies that they need to be getting the newest thing if they're into tournament play and stuff like that. Like Marines are just like constantly getting new stuff churned out for them.
Yeah, so the idea of getting on the train, let's talk about that. Because 40K, I got on at the end of ninth edition, and the train felt like it was moving very, very fast. However, it was also the very first tabletop miniatures war game that I'd ever played. So I'm kind of new in that way. Now, I don't know. I don't know if 10th edition is nearly as difficult to onboard as ninth edition was. And
No, ninth edition was pretty complicated.
and ninth edition was that way because it was actually 8.5, wasn't it? Or was it like
Uh,
7.8?
no, well, I don't really like these point systems for these games. For using these editions like that because it did build off of the eighth edition rules, but it was kind of taking eighth edition and adding a lot more into the whole match play system of how you like score things with your secondaries and everything. That's kind of what it put on top of that. But uh, along with some other differences, it was a different game than eighth edition.
When did
And
s- what?
a lot of editions are like that. They're built off the shoulders of the next kind of tent pole or pedestal edition.
Sure. Well, and 10th edition it was sort of a reset. Um, but I want to explore a little bit of this onboarding and why it is and is not, why it can and cannot be more complicated from one edition to the next. And I think there's some core principles that lead to that. For instance, was it during ninth edition that the whole Psychic Awakening book came out and was added on? Was that in the middle of ninth or was that in eighth edition?
That was the end of eighth.
Okay. So at the end of eighth, they bolted on the psychic phase, and the ninth kind of took.
No, psychic phase was. Well, hold on, what are you talking about? You're talking about psychic awakening. Now you're talking about psychic phase.
Yeah, the Psychic Awakening book added a bunch of psychic stuff to everybody.
No, no.
Did it not?
Psychic awakening was essentially an end of edition rules edition where they just start giving supplements to all the armies. Like, hey, here's new stuff you can do, new character traits, new uh, enhancements for vehicles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like guard got like rules for giving tanks tank ace abilities and stuff like that. It was just the name was Psychic Awakening, and it was just adding basically like DLC for all the different armies.
Right. And then ninth came in, and a lot of the armies sort of had that built in. Is that the way that it went?
Uh,
Because see again, I'm coming at the back end of ninth, so I've only ever caught these little transitional periods through hearsay and the way people remember them.
Psychic Awakening stuff was kind of grandfathered in. Uh, it's like playing guard. I had the eighth edition codex from the start of eighth until essentially the end of ninth edition. So I was playing like one codex for like 6 years or however long
And
the
your co-
editions were out.
and your codex from eighth edition still worked in ninth.
Yeah,
Yeah, see
it was it was still using the same base rule set.
right, which is why I tend to call it why I think an argument could be made. You could call it 8.5. Now,
I mean, you could call previous editions like 3.5 or 4.5. You can do like that. You could just do that.
sure. Um,
3.8.
by the time we get to ninth edition, it's very complicated. The army rules are complicated. The secondaries are complicated. The matched playbook is complicated because it has it has whatever pile of secondaries. I and then we get to 10th where we wipe it all away. We index the whole thing. Now, there is no doubt that is the easiest way to get started. However, that's only if you start on day one before the first FAQ and the first balanced data slate comes through and begins trying to clarify those fairly simple, what are they, 40 pages of rules that are in the core rulebook. And I'm not sure if 10th edition has gotten so far removed that you can't play that way. But you'd certainly have a hard time playing a. Well, I don't know. I was going to say you'd certainly have a hard time playing a match just like you did with ninth edition. However, you kind of don't because you don't need this entire book. Because the Arcs of Omen book, which is where I started, is not small. It's a pretty big chunky thing of how to play a match in ninth edition. Whereas now you buy your card pack and you just go. And with all that said, I think that you could just get into 10th edition right now because theoretically we're probably at the same point of 10th as I came in at ninth. And I don't think that the onboarding has changed very much, besides that you likely have to buy a codex for your army because it exists than it was when it was initially indexed. Therefore, I don't think that the 3-year cycle makes any sense for ease of onboarding.
It's not for easy onboarding for the most part. It's
Well, yeah, but that's a factor, right? Like,
it,
we got to go through all the
yeah, it's
factors because we got a show to fill.
it, yeah. I was gonna say there's a big elephant in this room that is looming over us.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm trying to talk about the
It
the sort of
its leg
holistic.
is over my head.
Right, I know. It's over mine too, but it's such a here. Okay, let's mention the elephant. The elephant in the room is business. All right, saying there's a new edition coming out, everybody. It's the new hotness. It's the best time to get into 40K. Makes a lot of money. It makes so much money that it is a winning argument to have the discussion about whether or not that's worth doing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
anybody, look, we're all 40K fans here. All of you that are listening are 40K fans. I know that a not insignificant number of you are mad at GW a lot for a number of reasons. However, you cannot sit there with like your sober mind and think, well, yeah, if I ran GW, I would never start a new edition because I don't want to make $1 billion. No, you'd go ahead and make the $1 billion too. Like they're doing their best while saying we are in this to make $1 billion, right? I
yeah.
mean, I believe they're a publicly traded company. They actually have to make some money. But let's set that aside for the end because there is a little bit more to it. But let's go back to the 3 year cycle and how that affects the game. It certainly causes a ton of fatigue with the current players. Now,
Yeah.
is that fatigue real once the thing comes out?
Uh, I don't know. I think it's kind of a wearing thing, and as the editions go on, uh, kind of possibly get worn down, having to constantly learn how to ride your bike.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I think though that because look, the hard part is have an army, have it built, have it painted, have it amassed because it's very expensive, right? So the hard part is actually done. Like the financial outlay, all of that is pretty well done when if you're a longtime player and there's a new edition. Um, and aside from crazy stuff like they just entirely retire an army, but I don't think they don't so much do that. If anything, lately the move has been to break your army off into another one. Looking at you, Summer of Chaos. Um, so I think where the wearing and the fatigue happens is in the approach to this 3 year cycle. I wish they didn't do a 3 year cycle. So if the question in the Discord is should they change the 3 year cycle? I think absolutely, because how many people have you heard say toward the end, even toward the middle of an edition, where just as soon as the whispers of the next one start to happen, as the calendar creeps closer to the 3 year mark, you hear people say things like, "Man, I'm thinking about starting XYZ Army, but I think I'm going to wait and do it and see what it is in 11th and then start it there." So
Yeah,
we get this
I was going to
weird,
expand.
we get this holding pattern happening with people.
Mhm.
Now, over on the
Eh,
business side of this is where the onboarding, I think, actually becomes a factor, right?
mhm.
Do you catch more people with a fresh onboarding, being that we're in a atmosphere right now where onboarding is actually not difficult comparatively, right? Compared to how it's been in the past. And honestly, that's the brilliance of the card deck. And the fact that the core rules are free in the app. And they're updated. They've got all the verbiage exactly like they should be, right? So you can get that for nothing to figure out how to move and charge and shoot. You buy your codex, so you don't even have to buy the core rulebook like I did at ninth, which by the way was there had been some adjustments made in it. It turned out that I didn't know about, but they've got the 10th edition rules for free. You have to buy your codex. You've got your army. And you can just go because then it's like, well, how do I play with my friends? And they say, you buy this card deck and it's got the instructions and you knock yourself out, right? It's good. Do they get more people taking the leap into a new edition versus the people that they already have who go into this holding pattern? People who do spend more money because they tend to commit to whole armies because they're active players versus whatever kind of retention percentage it is of brand new player who intends to play but never does amass an entire army. That's an interesting question.
Well, I think that it's going to be a small subset of the people that are in the holding pattern, because for the most part, the majority of the people that play this game have one army, uh, and that can be people that are just getting into the game. They're going to be building one army unless they do something stupid and are like, "I'm going to collect 3 armies at once and get burnt out immediately." Uh, but it's these holding pattern people that are not necessarily what Games Workshop are looking for. They're looking for new people that see all the big lights and everything, new edition coming, that walk into their local game store. see the big cutout poster, big cardboard cutout of the newest Marine pattern armor standing there. And it's like, hey, here's the new edition of 40K. You've heard a little bit about it. Well, here's the best time to jump into it. New rules, new everything. New starter box. Get it. It's only like 100, 200, 300 something dollars. Uh, so come get it with your friend. Split the armies. Uh, it's what they're looking for are the new players that are going to buy up a bunch of stuff, buy up paints and stuff, and if they stick around, that's amazing. That's perfect. They join the little GW ecosystem. If not, Games Workshop has made several $100s off their purchases.
Yeah. Here's a here's a counterpoint. We're going to do an RPG Tavern episode after this, and Dungeons and Dragons just put out the 2024 edition, and it has not been wholly embraced. People have kind of the sort of temperature on it appears to me, and I mean, as somebody who plays the thing quite a bit too, uh, they're a little bit like, hey, fifth, we kind of like fifth edition because it's got all this extra stuff that we've already built and are used to, and they kind of didn't want to reset, right? It's a little bit like, hey, everybody's got their codex now. Can we play for a while? And so I wonder if for Wizards of the Coast, if the wholesale new edition was worth doing by the time you factor in, the R&D, the printing, the research, the carrying on, right? If it was worth
Mm-hmm.
doing. And this is where I think we get to a real question. Did 10th edition need to happen? I think 100%. Not on a 3-year
Yes.
cycle, but just because the game had gotten to a place that it wasn't super fun and it could have been better, but to make it better, you sort of had to break it down and start over.
See, the problem with ninth edition was the game had become so bloated and convoluted that I'm even surprised you stuck around with how just complicated the game had begun because I had run a demo during ninth edition, towards the last half of ninth edition, trying to teach this game to people. And literally, I basically homebrewed my own version of the game using ninth edition as kind of a building block and throwing out a whole bunch of stuff just to kind of create something that a new person could pick up.
Yeah, no, it was painstaking. I
And
sat on I sat and played myself on Tabletop Simulator, like a 500 point game with the core rule book in my lap, just
mhm.
crunching through step by step by step, and it was brutal.
and every FAQ, the Marines would change. They'd get something new because weapons were so powerful. You talk about weapons are powerful this edition. Last edition, AP was so just abused that you got to the point where they were like, "Yeah, Marines, just ignore one AP from everything," because they were just getting absolutely tabled. Then you end up with armies that are in the middle of the AP that suddenly can't do any damage, like Necrons and Orcs. Suddenly they can't do any damage to anything in the game because their AP is getting negated.
Yeah, and those kind of things, those kind of things are, I mean, the entire process for playing the game was not very streamlined in my opinion for ninth. Um, it was a lot to keep up with at all times.
So,
In a similar way, I'm going to tie this back to D&D and how 2024 has not been so well received because 5th edition D&D was so well received and still functions for so many so adequately, right?
mhm.
Um, Ninth edition was more like 4th edition D&D where you had all this condition stacking because it was actually a skirmish tabletop war game lightly dressed up as an RPG, right? And people are like, "Well, this doesn't feel like I'm This feels like I'm playing a video game, not that I'm whatever this adventurer is. Ninth edition felt like playing a like mahjong or something because I don't know if anyone knows how that works. But 10th edition
Uh,
feels like you're piloting an army and having fun, and that there's some simulation of a battle going on. Now, that brings me to what'll be kind of my final point on this of whether or not the 3-year cycle should change. It should not be a 3-year cycle, certainly, because that's silly to just put a limit on it. I think you run this stuff till the wheels fall off. Because if everybody likes it, if it is if it is if it is a an organism that is uh, that is willing to change, like that takes adjustment well, which I think 10th edition actually does, then why would you clear the deck and frustrate everybody? I feel like the GW should every 6 months be doing a marketing push of here's a new starter box and yada yada, right?
yeah.
Close down Leviathan, make a bigger deal about moving on into the Pry Nexus or whatever it is, and do that, literally twice a year of this get new players on board program into 10th edition. And if they and I could see them doing this because look, Dungeons and Dragons has now done this. They've they've largely thrown the edition number out the window in favor of here's our new starting point. Now what they've done is a bit funny, right? Because all the old stuff works with the new stuff. So it's actually 5.5 in their case. Like they were at 5th edition, now it's like 5.5. The base is still 5th because everybody loves it and it works good and it is what's the word I'm looking for? It endures change and adjustment well. 10th edition does too. Just look at how many times we've adjusted the army rule for the Sisters of Battle and their detachment rules. Okay, the printed codex is sorely out of date, but the army continues to work. I am not convinced that GW is not going to do this because Austin, it's a lot of new Space Marines coming out, and it's been a long time since that Space Marine Codex came out. And I could absolutely see there being it would make synchronicity with the name of the game that is so very popular, Space Marine Codex 2.
Yeah, and it's not the first time they would have done that.
I would love to have a Chaos Space Marines Codex 2 to supersede and to buff my army next to the up with the others, and add in more, different attachments, or perhaps even the second edition. Let's just call them second edition codexes, right? Second edition of 10th edition codexes. Maybe they do away with the army rule detachment system. Maybe they work the armies differently, but then you could still fight with the other stuff. And then as we go on, everybody will end up with a Codex 2. That could be good because and that all that is based on the core rules, the way they work really well. The game is very fun, and the uh, 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 um, and the mission decks make it so that you can kind of just plug and play the match play, the competitive, the stuff that people actually want to play. Nobody's playing whatever it's called, Only War, Total War, Warhammer 72 out of the core book. Nobody's playing that. So that's I think big chunky mission books with secondaries are never coming back because it's so much more fun to just draw up a deployment, draw up a primary, draw up a whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the comments, let us know what you think. I imagine the comments will be a bit of a dumpster fire. We got into the business of this briefly. The business of it is kind of apparent. I mean, look, we're talking about a company that raises their prices every year to at least the rate of inflation rounded up. Okay? They're not leaving a dollar on the table for any good reason. However, I think that there's still money left on the table at 10th edition, and I hope that we see it go on until people just get tired of it or until they've until they've beat the horse to death. But we're going to keep riding 10th edition out and playing some games. I hope to get one in, maybe early next week. We'll tell you about it in the Bits Box the next time we talk to you on 40K Fanatics Podcast. And until next time, don't forget to
Stay fanatical.